Good morning. I'm James Ford. I'm one of the teachers with the Empty Moon Zen Collective, and today you might notice, if you were with our sitting group, that two of our members are now wearing colored rock suits. And Mo and Tom last night, for the historical record, the 26th of August 2022 in Long Beach, I gave them Denkai transmission, and I thought it might be worthwhile for us to talk a little bit about Zen, awakening, and the mysterious ritual of awakening, and what that might mean for us in this particularly hard time and place, and what it might be good for, and maybe a little bit of what it's not good for. Actually, Janine Larson was supposed to be part of the same service of transmission. She, unfortunately, thanks to COVID, was not able to join us, and I will be scootling up to Seattle to complete that part of her transmission as well, very soon. In some ways, for this reflection, actually, there's a tiny plus in that the whole question of what Janine's, of course, an ordained priest, what is monasticism, what is priesthood, what is ministry in our emerging Western Zen, rich and wonderful questions, fraught in some ways as well, as perhaps everything is. Certainly what I really would like to address together with you all today, Dharma transmission. A unique thing to our Zen community, our Zen lineages. There are similar things elsewhere, but the way we do it is, I think, unlike any other community. And what a great moment to share just a few thoughts on the subject. Of course, it's rooted in the whole matter of awakening, and awakening is seeing past the one and the two, abstract words, but actually speak to something profound and true, a shifting of the human heart. And all religions have it. People without any religion have it. This profound intuition is part of our common human heritage, and in religions, it's usually tied up with the mystical schools. Although even the word mysticism, misty is not a bad word, and there's many a side path that people can get tangled up in. But the fundamental matter of our true intimacy of who we actually are and how we might be in this world, how we actually are in this world, except for the coverings of stories we tell ourselves, is the heart matter of I suggest our lives as human beings, and definitely what it is about to be part of the Zen community. Our unique way comes in this bizarre meeting in early medieval China, where a missionary religion, Indian Mahayana Buddhism, appears and encounters an equally ancient and profound culture, but way different, and a culture clash, a conversation. Interesting things begin to happen. Probably, it's hard to say, to unravel what's the most important thing, but tied up very much are the emergence of new ways of practice. The original Buddhist practices are very much rooted in concentration, very elaborate and often kind of an intellectual turn, and life-changing, profound. But they meet new things in China, and two practices begin to emerge. One is a raw practice of presence, and it will take on several dynamics over the ages. Really important. The other one is, for me, the most important thing was the emergence of what we call now koans, the public case, the assertion about a truth and an invitation to stand in that place, to occupy it, to be occupied by it. Books have been written on that subject, as many of you know, including by me. The critical thing there is that a bundle of practices emerges in medieval China as we begin to advance, and they touch the human heart in ways that few other religious traditions have been as reliably applied, and we become guardians on the Zen way of something really important. But tied up with that, of course, is the actual experience, this place of intimacy, and the place of intimacy, the practices of presence, the emergence of Wato and Koan becomes something. And the other part that becomes really intriguing with Chinese Buddhism is that China's culture is really familial. And big shadows. There's the whole patriarchal part of it, but it's also familial. It's like, who is your family? Where do you come from? And Zen's response was to say, well, we have a lineage, we have a spiritual family, and as stories come of ancestors in China, and Bodhidharma gets dragged into this story, and there's who's an Indian missionary to China, and it's hard to find the history in all this before a couple of generations after Bodhidharma, but this story of a family line becomes really, really important, and after what they call the sixth ancestor, Wei Neng, actually you can say after the fifth ancestor, Ha Ren, this story becomes history, and so all of a sudden, from about the 7th century, we're talking about an actual historical fact of teachers authorizing students all around this fundamental encounter of the heart and the bundle of practices that support it. Now, there comes a shadow with this. There's when we look at the literature, we look at the lamp histories, we look at the koan collections, we see these enlightened masters. Their shit does not stink. They are perfect masters often, and it's and it's a story, but we become caught up in it because I know when I began, the even what was actually even available to in the scholarly community was relatively thin on the ground, and for us who are reading in popular literature, there's like 2 books, 3 books. There's Alan Watts, there's D.T. Suzuki, and actually Suzuki Roshi gets a little bit of Daisetsu Suzuki, Professor Suzuki gets a little bit of a rough treatment these days because he talked a lot about awakening, and he didn't talk much at all about institutions or even the practices around awakening. And fair enough. Our way is very much tied up in history, and the universal is only ever known in the particular. But he also spoke a truth. There is awakening. There is that thing, and it's the primary part of it. But what we discover when we compare dead Zen masters with living Zen masters, is that things are more complicated. I love the stories of the ancestors. I love the koan collections. They are in my heart and my bones, and they really, really, really do inform me in ways that I can only assert without actually being able to fully convey. But the living Zen masters, it turns out not only do they shit and fart, but some of them jiggled the bank account. Others, are inappropriate with students. All of them, it turns out, without exception, are human. Even the ones who live in a box and don't seem to have anything, they tend to be inclined to being grumpy. We all, it's human, as it should be, because we are not actually in awakening going somewhere else. We're intimate. We are who we are, gathered together in a most amazing universe. Now, I could go on and on and on about the development of the thing, but I want to jump to the West in North America with the missions. In some way, we're getting to do a bit of a do-over. And that's part of what I think is really, really important. From the beginning, this matter of awakening and even transmission was never fully captured by the institutions. Certainly in Japan, you get, you got to receive these ranks in order to advance in the profession of the Zen temple system. But awakening was always floating out there as an option, especially in the koan schools. It was really, that taste, that first genuine intimation, and then a program of deepening and understanding it was there. With the early 20th century, really out of the Meiji, and then you get this real explosion of breaking away from the institutions. For our purposes, specifically the rise of what was at first called the Sambo Kyodan and now called Sambo Zen, and the many lineages that flow out of that, including ours. They simply said, we don't need the institutions. We will focus on the hard practice, specifically koan practice, specifically a slight modification of one of the traditional Rinzai koan curriculums, and the tradition of transmitted spiritual directors. And that has what has come west. And everything has come west. You can do any kind of Buddhist practice. You can do any kind of Zen community that you might want. But ours is focused on those things. Awakening, bundle of practices associated with awakening, and spiritual directors who stand in lineage, both mythic and historic, all who seem to be very, very human, all who seem to be, if they're doing it right, working hard with the cards they were dealt, and all noticing that this practice is finding our own way past the not one, not two, as we are, the universal found in the particular that is us. In this case, I'm thinking of Mo and Tom and Jenny soon. What I love about the do-over in the West is that Dharma transmission, not only is it this wonderful, beautiful thing, it's a practical thing, and a two-step transmission has emerged in the West. And there are various historical reasons how this could happen, but it's become almost everybody who transmits an actual historic lineage in the way has adopted in one manner or another this two-step transmission. The first step is an apprentice teacher, a teacher, emphasis on the teacher, but there are some restrictions, usually like in hours. The teacher can, these new teachers, Mo and Tom and soon Janine, work with people through koans. Our actual spiritual directors can really work with people. They can lead communities. They can do everything. And at the moment, cannot give transmission. They can't make another teacher. It's the only limitation. And it represents something that I think is actually true, because even when we move past that into in our lineage, because we use the Soto form, Denbo, will, and the person is a